It's go time. What's up, Lego builders? Welcome back to Coconut Brick Studios. Ooh, baby, it's week one of building Magito in Lego. In this episode, I'm going to be laying the groundwork for the series, setting up base plates, getting the initial bulk orders of parts in, and of course doing some building. This update will be focused on building foundations like the rockwork that the city is going to be on and the bridge supports. Basically everything that's going to be holding this mock-up. But I'm also going to throw in a fun little side build to keep things spicy. Now, if you do want early access to my weekly Magito updates or the UTAT episodes, check out my Patreon. Members get early access to updates, exclusive content, hauls, and I also do Coconut's Kitchen and gaming streams over there. If you're interested, I'll put a link to it down below in the comments. But I think the stage has been set, so don't forget to execute Order 66 on that like button, and let's get building. First things first, I gotta get the tables laid out. This will be the widest mock I've ever done and definitely will be the most unique layout. That being said, I don't anticipate this being a super part intensive build, so that'll hopefully mean I'll be ordering less parts. After Coruscant, for the first time in my life, I realized something. You can have too much Lego, and I don't mean sets. Obviously, those can clutter up a place real fast, but instead, you can have too many parts. I've always had ample room for bins and containers to store my pieces, and after a big project, all I had to do was buy more storage bins, but trying to dismantle and store Coruscant made me realize I am maxed out on space. I actually had to sell a bunch of pieces just because the space I freed up was more valuable to me than the Lego I was selling. So moving forward, I'm going to try to be more cautious with how much I'm buying and making sure the Lego I do get is really versatile and useful. I'm barely into the first update and I'm already running into problems. Like I said, over half the mock is going to be empty space, but there's still going to be base plates down for the bridges to sit on, and I can't put ground or snow terrain on them because these bridges are supposed to be really high up in the air. So I guess my only option would be to tile off all the exposed base plates with black tile, kind of like I did with Utapau, but that's going to be a very costly option and not really in line with what I was talking about earlier about being smarter with my parts buying, because I'd never need that many black tiles again. So I'd use them once and then they would gather dust on a shelf. And speaking of parts, I've got a big old haul to unpack. I have most of the parts I need for this mock with the exception of 3 groups, 2 of which are anything white and dark bluish gray slopes. I'm not a huge fan of white parts, so I don't have many because there just aren't many cool places or places that I was interested in building with white, and you know I'm never going to do a Hoth mock. And lastly, white parts get gross and yellowed super easily. I've had to order in all shapes and sizes of white for the snowy bridges and landscapes, and just as I feared, I got some gross yellowed ones. I've learned my lesson though from shopping on Bricklink, and if I need to order more bulk white stuff in the future, I'm just going to get it from Lego's online pick-a-brick wall. I got the dark bluish gray slope since I'm going to need a ton for all the rockwork, and I've never really done dark bluish gray rockwork in this scale. So I got all the essentials, 1x2, 2x2, 2x3, and of course the goated 1x2x5 slope, the best piece for building rockwork in my opinion. I also picked up a couple of cool random things like this commando droid and these dope flame pieces. I can't wait to show you guys what I've got planned with these. But the planning and setting up is mercifully over and it's time to start building. The first thing that needs to be built is the giant rock wall that will support the city and the bridge. To be honest, I had very little confidence in my ability to build decent looking rockwork going into this, which is weird since I've now had multiple years of experience with Utapau and Kato Nemoidia, but that was a while ago and I naturally doubt myself. So I found myself sitting there unable to start building. I guess I should have watched my own rockwork tutorial beforehand. I told myself to just build something for the camera and I could always rebuild it later, but funny enough, a few minutes after I just started, my confidence and creativity came flooding in and I was cooking up some coconut level rockwork in no time. Since Magito is super snowy, I want to integrate white into the rock. Not a lot, just on the flat spots or sections where snow could stick, like this little cave entrance. I like adding small caves into the rock because it breaks up the monotony of the build and makes the whole thing a little bit more interesting and realistic. I think the white bricks also add some nice contrast to the dark bluish gray and will make small areas like this pop and be more noticeable. I don't have a ratio I want to hit with the snow, just whatever looks good, and I think as I get higher up, I'll start adding bigger patches. One thing I want to have less of this time around is flat areas of rock. I'm experimenting with adding slopes in front of large flat sections of brick, creating patterns and shapes to make the rock look more eroded and less smooth. One thing I like to do is think about water running down the rockwork I'm building and what kind of shapes or patterns it would form into the rock. This helps me create natural looking rock faces instead of randomly just placing down slopes. The important thing when doing rockwork is starting with a good base, because you're going to be building off of that initial row of brick for a while, and it's going to be the foundation for the shapes you create higher up. So don't just think about what you're putting in at the moment, but what you're going to be putting in above that as well. I'm sure you've learned more about Lego Rockwork than you ever cared to know, so let's just enjoy some building for a bit. I like time lapses like this where I don't have to show you anything specific and I could just build and focus on the mock, instead of half my brain thinking about the shot and the other half trying to build. I'm not liking how this corner is looking. It's too close to a 90-degree angle, so I'm going to try and smooth it out a bit with slopes and make it look more natural. I added layers of sloped bricks staggered behind each other to help the two sides of the corner transition into each other smoother. If anybody's still watching at this point, let me know in the comments if you like it when I go really in depth with my building process or if you prefer a more general overview. Let's take a break from Rockwork and design some bridge supports. The bridges on Magito have no supports underneath since they're connected at both ends to city blocks and, it's Star Wars. But that's obviously not going to work for me, so I got to build some supports underneath. I'm going for an industrial but slightly gothic look, something you would see in Gotham City where Batman could brood in the moonlight. I'm adding lots of inverted slopes at the top to create a wide base for the bridge to sit on. This was one of my first designs, and I used rounded bricks to smooth out the sides of the pillar, but I don't like the transition from rounded brick to slope. It looks very disjointed and ugly. So back to the drawing board I go. I ditched the rounded bricks, and I think if I stagger rows of regular brick behind each other, I can still capture that rounded look I was going for, and the brick base will transition into the slope section much more seamlessly than the rounded pieces did. This isn't how big the actual support is either. Right now I'm just trying to find a design I'm happy with so I know what parts to order in. The slopes at the top will also help make this thing look less blocky. When it comes to rounded structure, staggering rows of brick and slopes behind each other is key to getting that rounded look. Also, I totally forgot to fill in the gaps behind these slopes like a noob. All right, it is nice to see Magito officially coming together. It's also really nice to just see the table messy again with things being built, bins out, parts everywhere. Things are coming together and things are happening. So first thing I want to talk about is the Rockwork. It's looking pretty good. Really happy with this. I'm trying out a new style of Rockwork, kind of like I was talking about. This one is a lot more messy with a lot more slopes, as opposed to what I did with Kato Nemoidia and Utapau, which were a lot more flat, kind of a lot more layered, almost like shale, where you have a lot of these thin layers stacked together and just kind of a lot smoother. I just wanted to try a new style of Rockwork. This is different planet, different atmosphere, and so there's going to be different kinds of weathering. One thing I'm still trying to figure out, though, is how to integrate the snowy patches in with the rock, because I'm having a hard time with the harsh transition between the snow and the rock. You can see right here, it's just one layer of snow, then it's completely flat, and then rock. Same with this section over here. I can build like the snowy parts themselves, but it's that transition to the non-snowy part that I'm struggling with. Over here, I put in a couple plates. You can see there's one right there and kind of staggered it, so it looked more like the snow kind of tapered down and then slowly went away instead of a flat, harsh line. I know you do see harsh lines like this and flat sections in nature, but I just feel like it's not as common as seeing a more gradual transition like this. So I'm trying to figure out how to do that because I can't add plates in every single section, but I don't know, maybe that's just me. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, or if you have any ideas for how I could kind of fix that transition from snow to rock. One thing I also realized after I started this was I should have started over there, because I wanted to get started on that smaller kind of maintenance bridge next week or maybe the week after, and I need at least part of the Rockwork to be in first, because this secondary bridge is actually going to connect into the Rockwork and lead into a tunnel that goes into the mountain. So before I can build the bridge and figure out where it goes, I need to know where that tunnel entrance is going to be, and that smaller bridge is also going to kind of dictate where the bigger bridge is. So I'm going to actually hop over there next week and take a pause over here. And speaking of bridges, I've got that bridge support done. I'm much happier with this prototype than the other one. This one all flows together and is much more cohesive. You don't have that ugly line right there from rounded brick to slope. However, there is still a couple of things that are bothering me that I'm trying to work on. So first one is just kind of like the placement and the kind of slope that I've built here. You can see I did I just staggered bricks. So I've got 4 wide right here, then 2, and then 1, then 1. So it's just kind of bothering me that there isn't really a pattern here because it goes 4, 2, 1, 1. And so I'm trying to figure out like how to fix that if I should make it all 2, if I should make it all 1. You can see I've kind of got the same problem over here where I've got 4 and then 2 and then 2, but then the very last jog is only 1 stud wide. So just trying to figure out how all that comes together, because the different widths in the jogs do help make this part up here look better. It's just kind of down here that looks weird. I tried building a prototype where all of the jogs in the brick or all the step backs are the exact same width. So you can see everything is 1 stud wide on this side, and then you come over here and everything is 1 stud wide as well. And it's much more symmetrical, but it also creates a less rounded and kind of a more blocky shape. So I'm still trying to figure out what exactly I'm gonna do here. One thing I do really like about the bridge supports are the top parts, the sloped parts. The way they just flare out and the way I was able to create that tapered looks really good. And the reason I'm having each of these sections flare out so much is because I want to be able to support as much as the bridge as possible. So, you know, the more slopes I have up here, the wider it will get without me having to build a super big base. Because the last thing I want is to go and put the bridge on and then have the ends sag down on either side. Also, check this out. I've started designing the UTAT. This is actually why I have the width of the bridge already figured out, is because I needed to be able to fit the UTAT tank on it. For anybody who didn't know or missed it, I'm actually building the UTAT as its own series. I'll put a link up to the first episode at the top of this video, but those are going to come out every other Friday on the channel. And then one last thing, I realized to kind of fix the problem with all the empty space on the base plates, I think what I'm going to do, instead of having all these base plates set out like this, I'm going to remove them all, and then I'm going to build each bridge support on its own base plate, and then I'll just stick those single base plates in. So that way, you know, I won't have to put in a ton of black tile. I'll only have to fill out the rest of each of these base plates, which in theory should work. We'll see how all those base plates end up fitting together. But I think as long as I space the supports out far enough from each other and the 2 separate bridges, I should be able to get everything in fine. You sat through all the boring rock work, so here's a little fun build as dessert to cap off the update. I'm going to build a custom E-web cannon. For anyone unfamiliar, think heavy machine gun, but for Star Wars. I know LEGO has an official one, but I thought it would be fun to design my own. Plus, theirs is, well, it's LEGO set quality. I don't know if they're actually E-web cannons used during the battle, but I wanted to include lots of small builds like this in the mock. I had a lot of fun adding mortar emplacements, barricades, and other small details in my last big mock, Coruscant, and I want to do the same with this one. I feel like it adds so much more to the overall story, and there are more Easter eggs to find and things to enjoy. And because Magito only has like 30 seconds of screen time, we don't get a good idea of what the battle looked like up close, so I have a lot of creative freedom and gaps to fill in with my own builds. That's the beauty of mock building. We get to add our own little twist to well-known scenes and stories. So I'll have a couple of these bad boys set up mowing down droids on the bridges or getting blown up. Now this is slightly bigger than minifig scale, but you can only go so small when building with certain pieces, and hey, when it comes to guns, the bigger the better. Not gonna lie, it's a little weird making update videos again. I feel like there's so much I'm not saying, so much I'm leaving out of the video. It's all just disjointed and unorganized, but hopefully that's mostly just in my head, and today's update made sense and helped you guys better see my vision for Magito. I am really happy with the building that I got done. The Rockwork's looking good. I feel like I've set up a good base and a good formula or kind of technique for what I want this mountain to look like. Now I can go ahead and kind of copy and paste in the other sections. I like the bridge support as well. It's starting to look a little bit less weird. I think once I scale it up to its proper size, it'll look even better. Next week, I want to get started on that second bridge, the maintenance bridge. I want to get into the bridges as quickly as I can because I think that's where a lot of the interesting building is going to be going on. And since I want to do the bridge, I got to first figure out where that tunnel entrance is going to be in the rock. So I'm going to be doing some more rock work as well. And the interesting thing about that bridge is it doesn't run straight into the rock wall. It comes in at an angle. So it'll be a fun little challenge trying to figure out how to get everything to connect at an angle like that. All that being said, that wraps up this update. Don't forget to let me know what you thought about everything down below in the comments, and I'll catch you next time. But until then, happy building.